Hello, my name is Dovid B. Timeless. I am a Jewish mystic, and the point of not just a mystic, but all the Jewish people, is to be lights unto the nation. And so, because of the tremendous amount of darkness in our world, I thought more than to be a light, I should be brilliance. Therefore, I've decided to bring the Zohar to the world. The Zohar is the most mystical text in the Torah. And it has a very interesting history of how it came to the world and who wrote it and what we're doing with it right now. So I thought, just as an introduction to the Zohar, I would give like kind of a historical thing about it. See, and the way to be able to understand Jewish wisdom is to understand the concept called Yeridat ha-dorot, the chaining down or the going down of the generations, meaning each generation is lower than the one before it. And now the calendar, the Hebrew calendar, it's not really a Hebrew calendar. It was adapted by the Jewish people. But the calendar precedes the Jewish people by a couple of thousand years, in the same way that the Mayan calendar predated the Mayan civilization by thousands of years. And both calendars are interconnected. A very interesting thing that they both have a precise day when they began, and the Mayan calendar began 666 in the Hebrew calendar, and it ended in 2012, and the Hebrew calendar ends in 220 years. Both have an exact beginning and an exact end, which is a sign that this is a galactical thing. The Mayan calendar goes around the North Star. We don't really go around the North Star, but we appear to go around the North Star. It takes 13,000 years, right, 26,000 years altogether. And the Hebrew calendar, it goes from the first human being until the end of the 6,000 years, these 6,000 years of man. And then we enter into 1,000 years of woman and 1,000 years of peace. And these things are not talked about much because the Zohar has been kept secret by the rabbis who didn't want to let the secret out, and now they all forgot it. So I've discovered it. I've been learning Zohar for 50 years, and I think I have a pretty basic, good understanding of the Zohar and what the Zohar is, which many people might find, incredulous. How can I have figured that out when even the greatest rabbis couldn't have figured it out? But it's not, in a sense, their fault that they didn't have all the information, because the Zohar is writing this very intricate information about creation that none of it made any sense for thousands of years because there was nothing to relate it to. Until our time, when we have telescopes and microscopes, and now we see what the Zohar is talking about. It's talking about the foundation of our creation. And the beauty is, as it says in Torah, and it repeats this in the Zohar, that God created b'chachma, and the chachma means with logic. That's the beginning of logic. Chachma means koachma, the power of what? That's where the soul, the soul is engraved out of a star and connects to the brain, to the human being in the right side of the brain. See, when the angel of death comes, he just cuts the cord, just like we cut the cord to come into the world. They cut this cord and we go out of the world, and we go back to our soul. So the big light people see when they leave is not God. I mean, it's just one's own soul. but it has to be attenuated and attenuated down so it can come into the person. And similarly, that the first generations of human beings were very, very high, and were able to, like, they say they knew the pathways through the heavens. And a lot of the knowledge that we have that came down, was written in the Zohar, comes from these early people. That was passed down, this secret knowledge, because no one really needed it. Only in our time we need it, because things are so dark in our time that we need not just light, we need brilliance. So I'm going to do a series of recordings about the Zohar. You're welcome to send me questions, and to give people a better understanding of the great light of the Zohar, and the just interesting the story of the Zohar, because the Zohar has a story, and Zohar means brilliance, and it's the highest level of the Torah. And there are 4 levels of the Torah. There is the actual written word. There is the called the Nakuda, the sound that the letter makes, and that's dependent upon what the word is. The Nakuda is different, but it's a phonetic language, so each letter sounds like it's like the name of the letters. Once you know the name of the letter, you know the sound of the letter, and then it's just a matter of what Nakuda is beneath the letter. And then, instead of, they don't have commas, what they do have, in the Torah, is they have these inflection points. And through the inflection point, you know what fits with what, because there's no, in the written Torah, it's written by hand, like 600,000 letters, written by hand with a feathered pen. It takes like years to write it. You have to be very careful. Every letter has to be perfect and exactly where it's been from the very beginning, from the first Torah. And in these letters, there are some letters, many letters, maybe 1 out of every, 5 or 10, that has a little crown on it. No explanation. Not only is there no explanation, but Moshe, the prophet who received the Torah from God, asked God about it. What's with these crowns? God said a great rabbi is going to come around in a couple of thousand years, and he's going to learn many things from these crowns, laws. So Moshe said, knows God's beyond time and space, physical or spiritual. So Moshe says, I'd like to meet this man. So God puts Moshe in Rabbi Akiva's academy, and he's teaching. And he's teaching about all the laws that he has discovered through these crowns. And Moshe raises his hands and he says, how do you know this? And Rabbi Akiva says there's no logic to it, but we received it from Moshe, our teacher. So Moshe was happy with that and went back to where he was in time and space. So even though Moshe himself didn't understand what these was, but he was the conduit by which it would become revealed, like 1,500 years later by Rabbi Akiva. And Rabbi Akiva was the greatest of all the rabbis because he came from people who had converted, which means he was in touch with not just the Jewish people, but with the whole outside world. And because of that, his laws, the way that he saw the law, was the way we see the law, because it's something that applies to the entire world. And that's the point of the Torah, is to bring the Torah to the world, and and to help the world see what creation is, look up into the sky and say, "Ooh, God created that." And that's what God wants, just to be known and loved. All right, so this is the first of a series, and I appreciate if you would click surprise, click subscribe. Click subscribe, and I'll do another one, God willing, tomorrow. All right, see you later. This has been Dovid B. Timeless. Thank you very much. Bye.